Hello class, today we are starting our new unit on polynomials. So this first section, you're going to turn in your notes packet to 2.1, and we're going to introduce what polynomials are and talk about some definitions that you need to know about polynomials. So right now you guys should be filling in your notes as you go. During this video, I'm going to ask you to pause and do some practice problems, and I expect you to try those and check your answers so that you can see if you understand this. So jumping right in, our objectives today are that you can find the degree, the leading coefficient, and the constant for a polynomial. You can understand what a term is, what a polynomial is, and you can name a polynomial based on its degree and how many terms it has. So the first thing we need to talk about is a term. So a term is a single number, like 5, or a variable like x or y or a or b or c, or a number and a variable multiplied together like 5c, or even something like 7x squared. You can have an exponent. Now, when we're looking at a polynomial, if I have more than one term, these are going to be separated by add or subtract. Now, a polynomial is an expression with many terms. That's what polynomial means, is poly being many, nomial being terms. So these terms can include a constant or a variable and can be combined using addition, subtraction, and multiplication. Notice that we're not using division here. And then with our exponents, they need to be whole number exponents. So some examples of a polynomial are things like 4x plus 1. This has two terms that are added together. There's no fractions in the exponent, and there's no division. This next example, we have 1/2 x squared plus 3x plus 7. A fraction is like division, but because it's the constant, it's the number in front of the variable, sorry, not the constant, the coefficient, then it's okay to have a fraction there. And then we have 3xy squared minus 2xy plus 4x squared minus 2y squared. So you can have different combinations of variables in your polynomial. Now, some things that would not be a polynomial are things like 3 over x plus 1 over x minus 2. Because x, the variable, is in the bottom of the fraction, this is not a polynomial. This is called a rational expression. Okay. The next one, we have the square root of x minus 9. We don't want any roots in polynomials. These are called roots. And then the last one, we have an exponential. Because the x is in the exponent, then we call this an exponential, and it's not a polynomial. All right, so we're going to label the parts of a polynomial. So the first thing I have labeled here is the terms. So we have 5x squared is one term, negative 15x is another term, and positive 10 is the third term. So when I'm talking about the term, I'm talking about the whole piece. The next piece is the leading coefficient. And I would like you to add some notes to the leading coefficient. Okay, the leading coefficient is the number in front, but only when it's in something called standard form. Now, when I talk about the leading coefficient, I am not going to say 5x squared. I'm going to say the leading coefficient is 5. I'm just using the coefficient or the number in front of the variable. Now, we have our leading coefficient, the one that is at the front of the line, but we have multiple coefficients. Anytime we have a variable, we have a coefficient. So negative 15 is a coefficient as well. Okay. And again, we do not say negative 15x is the coefficient. We just say the number part. Our next term is the variables. So our variable in this case is x, and we have x squared and x. And finally, we have the constant. The constant is the term that does not have a variable. It's always the term that does not have the variable, and that's because that term is always going to be the same. So in this case, it's always going to be 10, no matter what x is, because x is not affecting the 10 itself. So that's called the constant. It's staying the same. All right, so you have those all labeled on your notes. And we are going to now talk about how to put a polynomial into standard form so that you can find the leading coefficient and the constant. So standard form is when the polynomial is written in order of the exponent from biggest exponent to smallest exponent. Biggest exponent to smallest exponent. So I don't care about the coefficient. I only care about the exponent. So when I write this in order, I find the biggest exponent. Okay, the biggest exponent is 3, so that's going to go first. Okay, then I have an exponent of 2. When I have a term that's just x, or even if it had a number in front of it, if it does not have an exponent, that means the exponent is 1. So this will be our third term. And then the constant always goes at the end. So in standard form, I would say 4x cubed plus 3x squared plus x minus 5. Now remember, we're looking at the constant, so it doesn't matter that 4 is bigger than 3 over here, because those are the coefficients. Those are the numbers in front of the variable. I'm looking at the 3, the 2, the 1, and the constant always goes last. So I'd like you to pause the video right now, and I want you to answer these practice problems. So you've got 2 practice problems in your notes. I'm going to have you pause for 30 seconds, write these down in standard form, and come back and check your work. All right, so you have your answers on your paper. You're here to check your work. This first one, we're going to go 3, 2, 1, and then the constant. So it's 8x cubed minus 2x squared plus 3x plus 4. The next one, we do 8x to the 5th plus 3x cubed minus 6x squared minus 2. Now from here, we can identify the leading coefficients and the constants. So once it's in order, I can see that on both of these, the leading coefficient, or we're going to abbreviate this LC, leading coefficient, is 8. And then on the end, the constant is 4 and 2. So you will have some questions about the leading coefficient and the constant on your homework. Always make sure you're putting it in standard form before you answer the question. All right, so the next thing we need to talk about is how to name a polynomial. So polynomials are named by their degree and by the number of terms in the polynomial. So when we want to name this by degree, the degree is the largest exponent, or the sum of the largest exponents if there's more than one variable. So you find the largest exponent on your polynomial, and that is going to help you decide what the name is. So if the largest exponent is a 0 because you have a constant, there's no variable, then we call this a constant. If your largest degree is like this, 5x plus 1, the exponent on this is 1, that is what we call a linear. So you could say first degree, but we don't usually. We call this one a linear expression or linear polynomial. Our next one is a quadratic or a second degree. Now a quadratic is anything that the biggest exponent is 2. Now you'll notice in this case that I have 3x squared and x. The reason why this is quadratic and not linear is because we look at the largest exponent, and 2 is bigger than 1. Okay, the next one, if you have a degree 3, you're going to call this a cubic or a third degree. So this is any time the biggest exponent is a 3. All right, once you get over 3, so 4 or more, you're going to find the biggest exponent, and you're going to use that number to say it's the 4th degree or the 5th degree or the 6th degree, etc. So whatever the biggest exponent is, degree. Now, filling in your number of terms. Okay? If you look at a polynomial and it looks like this example where I have 4x to the fifth, this is a fifth degree, but then I look at the number of terms. So this only has one term. There's nothing added or subtracted to it. So this is called a monomial. So mono meaning one, and then we have the nomial. So monomial means one term. Okay, this next one, I have two terms, 3x to the fourth and -9 or -9. So remember, terms are separated by an add or subtract. So I have two separate terms here. So two terms is called a binomial, bi meaning two. So binomial, two terms, one add or subtract. Okay, when I look at three terms, so three terms, I've separated here and here. It's called a trinomial. Like tricycle is a bike with three wheels. Trinomial is a polynomial with three terms. All right, and finally, if you get over four terms, we call it a polynomial with blank terms. So if it is four terms, polynomial with four terms. If it has five terms, it's a polynomial with five terms. So here you can see I've got my four different terms here. So I would say this is a third degree polynomial with four terms. All right, so naming polynomials, write this example down. We have 4x squared plus x plus 5. So I want to name this. The biggest exponent is a 2. So that means it's a quadratic or a second degree. And we have 1, 2, 3 terms. So since we have 3 terms, that means it's trinomial, tri meaning 3. So I would say second degree trinomial or quadratic trinomial. All right, I'd like you to pause the video again, finish these 2 examples, and then come back and check your work. This should take you about 30 seconds or so. All right, welcome back. You've got your answers on your paper, and we're just going to answer them really quickly. So this first one, I have an exponent of 3. So that tells me it's a cubic or third degree, and you'll see either term on your checks. And then I can see I have 3 terms. So this one is going to be a cubic trinomial or third degree trinomial. This next one, we have an exponent of 4, so it's a fourth degree, and there's only one term, so monomial, fourth degree monomial. All right, this is the last part that we need to talk about today. This is like terms. You guys have already been practicing with this a little bit when we were solving equations. So like terms are terms that have the same variable with the same degree. Remember, the degree is the same as the exponent. So if I look at these, 3x and 7x are like terms because they both have an x, and that x is to the first power on both terms. 2y squared and 8y squared are also like terms. And then 2xy and 9xy are like terms because they're both xy, x and y are to the power of 1. So this would be a like term. So non-examples would be things like 3x and 7y, or x squared and x cubed because the exponent is different, or 2a squared b and 9ab squared would be different because the exponents are not exactly the same. The a is squared on one term and the b is squared on the other term. So they're not the same. So when we're combining like terms, we want to only add together things that are the same. So when I look at this example, I have x and 2x are going to be like terms. So I'm going to add those together. Okay. I also have the 4xy is like terms with the 2xy. Now 3y or negative 3y does not have any like terms, so it's not going to change, but I don't want to forget it either. So I take x plus 2x, that's 3x, 4xy plus 2xy is 6xy, and then minus 3y. So 3x plus 6xy minus 3y. All right, so I want you to pause the video. This is the last time you're going to pause the video. Never mind. I already gave you the answers. So with this one here, what we're doing is, again, combining like terms. So the xy terms are like terms, and the y squared terms are like terms. So we add those together. 4 minus 1 is 3xy, and negative 2 plus 2y squared is 0y squared, so we don't write that down. Okay, this next one, we add our r cubes together. Make sure you get the sign in front of the number. So this is 5r cubed minus 6r cubed, which is negative r cubed. And then we have 7r to the fourth minus 6r to the fourth is r to the fourth. So that is all for today's lesson. Your assignment today is to complete your worksheet, correct your work, fix any mistakes, and turn it in. Once you've turned it in, I need you to get onto Canvas, and I want you to complete the Kahoot activity. So if you go to the Unit 2 module, there's an assignment that says 915 Kahoot, or Polynomials Kahoot. If you click that, then you can join the Kahoot. This is a self-paced Kahoot, so you can join at any time. You don't have to wait for the whole class to be ready. And it will still give you scores based on your speed and your accuracy. And then I can show you guys the podium later. So once you do that, that's just going to help you practice with naming the polynomials. If you have any questions, or if you need to talk to me about scheduling your retake for your Unit 1 test, or not your retake, but if you missed it yesterday, please send me an email and I would be happy to help you. If you could please help each other out. If anyone's stuck, help that and help explain it again so that everybody is ready to go on tomorrow. Have a good day.